Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show on a freezing cold Saturday, 11:39 Saturday morning, January 24th. Hope everyone's doing good. Yeah, it is. We are getting a severe Arctic blast. We kind of got a little bit spoiled last week with temperatures that were kind of in the 40s. I went to this dinner party just on Thursday night, and I was just like, "Holy shit!" It was almost balmy outside. It was in the 40s, and here he is. It's here we are now, and it's like 1 degrees. It's crazy. It's supposed to drop, and then we're tomorrow, which is Sunday. We're supposed to get like a foot of snow. So winter is back, but holy mackerel! I love the snow, but these temperatures, no, thank you. But anyway, it's always a great time to watch movies. Getting my TV set up. It's probably almost 2 weeks ago. My TV broke. It fell off the wall. It was like I have this shelf that my TV is on, and it was kind of a freak incident or accident. And I bumped into it, grabbing something off the other shelf that's close to it, and the TV toppled over. And I thought I caught it in time, but then went to watch a movie later on that night, and the screen was totally cracked, and I couldn't believe that happened. But I got a new TV a few days ago, and I'm gonna set it up tonight. So very excited. But in the meantime, it's been amazing, and I want to keep it up because I'm just blown away by the quality of these movies, and not only how they are formatted, but just the movies themselves. Because I've been watching a ton of new movies. It was actually a good accident that happened. I mean, not that I wanted my TV to smash, but I've been. It made me think of, okay, what the hell am I going to do when it comes to movies? So then I just happened to discover this channel, YouTube channel, the Film Crypt, which I've been recommending recommending it as much as I can. And so I started to watch those movies, and I usually hate watching stuff online, but the quality of these movies, however they're whatever format they're taken from, or however the transfer is pretty spectacular. Like really good quality DVD, really good audio, good picture, no commercials, and it's all just great, wild and crazy exploitation movies. And some of the movies I've seen, and but most of them, uh, it's been my first time seeing any of them. So I've been totally loving it, and I've been uploading. All the videos as of late have been from all of these new movies I've been watching, and actually ordered a couple of the movies on Blu-ray that I do believe are coming Mondays, which I'm really excited. Two movies that I saw. Then again, there's been so many, kind of staggering how many there's been. I've been watching literally a new movie every night. I usually watch a movie every night anyway, but a lot of times I rewatch. I buy a bunch of movies, and then I end up rewatching them and what have you after I get through them. And then I have a lot of other movies that I like to check out again, or maybe I've only seen this once or twice and that kind of thing. And then renting movies at Opera House Video, where that's usually where I go for new releases or new horror films. So I usually bounce back and forth, but I always see like something new every couple, like brand new every couple of weeks. And then I've been going to the theater more often, so obviously those are all new movies, which has been awesome. But I've never seen. This is the most I can ever remember that I've just literally seen a new movie every night for like the last 2 weeks, like solid, and it's just been awesome. I've never had that experience. So, and I'm sticking with it just because the quality of these transfers of these movies on this page, the Film Crypt, are just awesome. So, fucking a. So can't beat it. Um, yeah, and I ordered of two of the movies that I absolutely loved. Probably, I don't know. It's hard to say because there's so many good ones. I've been including today's show, which I'm really excited about talking about. This today's show, today's movie I'm going to be talking about is a movie I had never even heard about before. Didn't know anything about it, so it was totally new experience. And but I ordered two of the movies that really stood out was the Frankenstein 1973 television movie. It's called Frankenstein: A True Story. 3 hours. It was like a two-parter. Oh, amazing, amazing. It's officially my favorite telling of the classic Mary Shelley story. It's a masterpiece. So I just ordered that on Blu-ray, which I'm super excited. I got a beautiful edition coming my way, and I think it's a Shout Factory release. So super excited. And there's a from what I read too. There's a bunch of read about there's a bunch of special features on this disc too. So super stoked. And then another movie that I was absolutely floored by is a movie from what was it from? I think it was from '79, and it's called Microwave Massacre. And the movie is it's one of those movies you have to see to believe. It's one of the most bonkers uh, movies I've ever seen, and I loved it. And it's kind of a slasher movie too, which is again just another check in the box for me. And I ordered that on Blu-ray as well, so that's coming on Monday. Fingers crossed. Although I might not get it on Monday because we're supposed to be getting a foot of snow, so it might be a few days. But we're supposed to get a foot of snow starting tomorrow night, I guess, into Monday morning and all day Monday. I already heard talk of them already planning to close schools on Monday. Although my boss at school where I work, she's funny. She will wait till the very last minute to call it. So, but it looks like that could happen. But anyway, and I believe the company that put out Microwave Massacre, yeah, is I think it's I think it's an Arrow release, but it looks awesome, and there's a bunch of special features on it. It's one of those movies. I talked about it a lot in the review for it when I after I saw it, and it truly is one of those movies you have to see to believe because it's that fucking crazy. I the whole time watching it, I was just like, wow, how did this get made? And it's amazing. And it's super silly and goofy, and it's very funny. It's almost like a black comedy, but it has some things around it that are pretty disturbing, pretty fucked up, and kind of give it this, I don't know, a little bit of a serious tone. So, but what a ride! What a fucking ride! So I'm super stoked that I got that. That I don't know. Again, I've seen some pretty wild and really cool movies as of late, but I think Microwave Massacre might be the most bonkers movie that I've seen so far. Just a movie that just is like, just yeah, in a different galaxy, far away, or from a different galaxy, far away. So yeah, today's show is with no exception. This movie blew me away. It's called Contamination. It's a sci-fi horror movie from 1980. And it's a an Italian movie, but it's a dubbed version that is on this channel that I've been watching, the Film Crypt. But it's still amazing. Usually, a lot of the times when I buy movies, and I've said this a lot, but a lot of times when I buy movies on Blu-ray, and a lot of the movies I own are Italian or European movies. I will typically always go for the original. Like if it's an Italian movie, I'll a lot of the times with these movies you have the choice to watch it, and sometimes there are multiple versions of that film. So I will always go for the Italian version because usually that's not cut. And then I do find, even though a lot of the storylines for some of these movies are just kind of inherently ridiculous, there's still like some movies that do have a pretty cohesive story, and some are actually really good. But for the most part, they're pretty absurd. But I do generally find that if I go and watch if it's an Italian film or say, an Asian film, I will watch the film in its like in by the if there's a director's cut and also if it's in its original language, because I just find 10 times out of 10 that if you compare that version, say the director's cut to say the American cut, the the story, everything is different, and the translation can get lost. And I always find that the original native original language version of that particular film, the story is usually just more cohesive. And then also the thing that I don't like, which I've been fortunate that I haven't seen it too much as far as the movies that I've gotten, but it does happen, and it's a super bummer. But sometimes, the American versions are cut significantly, and scenes of gore, gratuitous sex, and violence, like they'll either be cut a lot or changed a little bit, so you don't get that full like shocking impact. That was a big thing that happened, obviously in the '80s when the video nasty things happened, and then also the video nasty situation where a lot of movies were basically banned for a long period of time because of their shocking nature, and and then they were eventually like re-released on VHS. But a lot of those versions of the movies were not very good quality wise. But then what happened also is a lot of Italian and a lot of European horror exploitation movies, they were released like in Europe, uncut and in their native land, and then a lot of the times what ended up happening was to get like a distribution deal, they would get bought by an American company, and then sometimes the those companies would decide to kind of cut some of the violence out of these films for the sake of trying to like market it to more people, and that I hate that. But the thing with Blu-ray is and 4K is that you can see these movies 99% of the time in all of their uncut glory. And the thing with this channel, the Film Crypt, they're not. From what I can tell, like these films are not cut. I mean, I don't know. I have to see some of these movies. If there's alternate versions of them, but for the most part, I don't think they're cut too badly. Some of them are really really gory, and then some of them are you know, there it's a little bit more sporadic. So, but so far I don't really notice it. And with Contagion or Contamination, which is I believe it's an Italian movie. I didn't know anything about this movie. I was totally blown away by this movie. It was directed by Luigi Cozzi, and it came out in 1980, and it's an American. There's Italians in the cast, but it seems like most of the people and actors involved with this film are Italian, and it's kind of a dubbed English version, but it's pretty good. I mean, it's still great. And there's a fun thing about watching the dubbed versions of a lot of these films because it does add an extra level of just ridiculousness to them. So there is that. I know one or two YouTube guys that primarily, with a lot of these movies that they buy and a lot of European movies, they will like usually only watch the American dub version for that reason because it does add, just kind of this really trashy vibe to it when you watch it when it's a dubbed version, because it's part of the charm. I mean, because that's like I know when I was a kid, like, and I got exposed to seeing Dario Argento films or Lucio Fulci or Bruno Mattei or Sergio Martino, any of those directors. Like when I got exposed to them as a kid, I definitely only saw the dubbed American versions. But now, like with some of those movies that I saw, like buying them now on Blu-ray years and years later, as an old crusty man, watching watching like watching Suspiria in its native language undubbed, it's a whole different experience. I mean, it's so much better. Everything is more cohesive, and it's just you understand a little bit more what's going on with the story, and that for me that's been the case time and time again. That's only for the hardcore people too. So anyway, Contamination. What a wild movie! I mean, it's probably one of the most gory movies I've seen recently too. It's super. There's some serious body horror action, like exploding bodies. And I did a review the other day, and I've been doing a lot of shows. Obviously, I mean I do a show every day, but I've been setting up a lot of the movies as as a premiere for premieres, just to kind of break it up a little bit, because it's possible to kind of oversaturate something. And I realize I might do that. I probably have a tendency to do that because I am kind of obsessed. I have this like weird obsessive nature, so I try to like be mindful of that sometimes. So I've been setting them up, breaking up so things don't get monotonous, and you know, uh, setting them up as premieres. But I still do them. I still do them every day, pretty much. When I can. And I did a show recently that's coming. I don't know if it's come out yet. I did. I do believe I set it up as a premiere, but maybe I'm wrong. But I did a show on a movie called Forbidden World, which is amazing, amazing, amazing. And that's definitely a movie I want to get on Blu-ray. And that movie, was when I was doing some research about that movie, because again, I never even heard of this movie, never had seen it before, and I was just totally blown away. That movie, Forbidden uh, World, is like, from what I read and gathered, it's kind of regarded as basically the biggest kind of alien ripoff, like the most gratuitously, obvious, kind of thing. Ripping off Alien, Ridley Scott's masterpiece. It definitely is. It definitely is. But I will say that today's movie, Contamination, is what big time. There's elements in this movie, although it is completely different. And that's the thing that I see all the time. Even movies that totally rip off, a major film, because these directors and filmmakers are they don't whenever you see interviews with Herschel Gordon Lewis, they don't pull any punches about it. They're in the war. They're in that world of trying to like have fun and trying to like tell a story for very little money, but they're also trying to like capitalize and make something, carve out something for themselves by trying to capitalize on something that was in the major market at one point. And that's kind of the very essence of exploitation. So and these guys are all working outside of any kind of social norm, or working outside of the Hollywood system, in some cases entirely independent. It's punk rock. I mean, I think it's as punk rock as listening to like a Minor Threat record or a Bad Brains album. I mean, I kind of feel like these movies also are pretty anti-establishment. I think they really do. Even the films in the exploitation world, the horror world, that are maybe a little bit lighter, just a little bit more goofy, or even more comical. I do think that these movies, at the end of the day, all give a big middle finger to the man, to the corporate executives. and which I'm all about. I think that's amazing. We need more of that, more of that now than ever. So anyway, um, Contamination is completely wild. It's basically it's a heavy duty sci-fi movie, and it's basically about this former astronaut, government agent, and a police detective track the source of these mysterious alien pod eggs that show up on planet Earth, and they emit this goo, and when the goo contacts your skin or your person, your body essentially literally blows up, and the gore and the practical effects in this movie, and again, I'm all about practical effects, all about that. I was blown away by this movie. Is super gory. This is probably the goriest movie that I've seen so far on this channel that I can't get enough of, the Film Crypt. It's probably the goriest movie. And again, obviously, it's totally ripping off Alien. In regards to the eggs and particularly when they've the astronauts in or the crew first goes to discovers the eggs in the first one, and the space jockey, that infamous iconic scene, and that it's totally ripping that off. But other than that, I really feel like this movie goes in totally in its own totally different direction, and it's awesome. Definitely, I mean, it's obvious. It's so obvious, but I would say, as far as like just blatant alien ripoffs, Forbidden World is that. Um, but again, that movie is goes into such bonkers territory that it's totally different, and I love that these movies really do that because I like that cliche thing that I say a lot, but I think it's true. Like I guess three things around that that are related to that, or three sayings that you hear about, like when people say they admit to a band that they like or a movie that they like or a book that they like or whatever it is, and people refer to it as like a guilty pleasure. You hear that all the time, like probably daily. People refer to that because there's like something maybe inherently I don't know, embarrassing about it. And then you always hear, well, that thing is so terrible, but it's so terrible that it's good. It's so bad it's good. That's another thing you hear about all the time. So you hear those kinds of sayings, all the time. But and then another one that I think is has a little bit more of a serious tone, but is kind of the same thing in a lot of ways. Or I kind of put them all together. That classic saying of um, good composers borrow, great composers steal. And I feel like they're all of the same kind of thread in a lot of ways. Thinking about the saying of guilt, like guilty pleasure. It's like I don't really feel like I never understood that saying. Like I don't agree with that saying at all. I feel like you just like what you like, and you can't really care what people think of what you like and what you don't like. You should be, um, I guess, comfortable in your own skin to just dig what you dig, and who gives a fuck if somebody is like judgmental over that or over this or that, and it's like who cares? Like I don't expect, and I come across it a lot, but I don't expect a lot of people to like a lot of the movies that I like because I mean I do I've obviously in the last few years and with like the explosion of all these boutique labels and all of these wonderful movies that have been coming out, and it's diving into a genre I've always loved, but just diving into it even more. Um, I know that there's not a whole lot of people out there that generally like these movies like I do, but I will say that more and more I can think of more and more people that I know that are more open to it and are, really digging it. I have a good friend that uh, is really, really into film, but we've never really talked about, exploitation movies. And I always thought he like was not into that, at all. Like it wasn't his jam. And then I remember a few months ago he was saying how he was like checking out and watching all these like sleazy non exploitation movies and all of this other shit, and I was just like, whoa! It kind of blew my mind. And then and I have a few other friends that are really into it as well, and so that's pretty awesome. But generally, I don't like. I go into it, realizing that a lot of people don't take, and not that you have to take them seriously, but don't like just dismiss it as just total trash and don't like give it any kind of praise or accolades, and that's fine. That's totally fine. So, so as far as in regards to like you like what it's a guilty pleasure, whether it's a some cheesy band that you like or some really shitty cheesy movie or a shitty cheesy book or whatever, and that's all subjective. But most people would maybe look at that. Like say you're really into like romance novels and you're obsessed with Daniel Steele books. Like, yeah, that's pretty ridiculous, but who gives a shit? Like what you like. And I think that that's the thing. I think that is like an illusion. I think you dig what you dig. You don't really care what people think, and you kind of, regardless, you're going to be drawn to that or be repelled to whatever thing, just kind of naturally. So I definitely think that saying is not really adequate, and I think it's kind of a wrong thing. And in regards to like it's so bad it's good, I totally think that that's so true. I totally believe in that because it's that fine balance. It's that fine balance of what makes something good, at least for me, and then why something that is bad, and it's just bad. And I've talked about that a lot, but I feel like I find that whole way of thinking about that kind of thing fascinating. I don't know. So, and then, but I think it's true. I think it's true. I think generally something can be so terrible or so bad that it's good, and so I think that's a true kind of thing. And then I really, really believe in the whole idea of like good composers borrow, great composers steal, because whatever creative person or an artist or whatever, what have you, content creator or whatever that person is doing, whether they're doing music or writing stories or painting, photography, or whatever it is, you know, we're always standing on, to a degree, like we have our idols, we have people we look up to, we always have, that sense of like people that we really admire or look up to, in our respected areas that we might be drawn to, say, when it comes to artistic expression. And then, that whole thing of like you're standing on the shoulder of giants, it's, and now with all of the history that we have to look back at or back on, as far as our, um, you know, all of these years, hundreds of years of creative things, you know, a lot of people think that, well, nothing new really comes out or nothing different comes out. It's just kind of a rehash of the same ideas or a variation on the theme that's already been there. Um, and that everything, you know, like, I don't know, like every guitar chord has been played before, so you can't really do something new with it. I don't believe that. I think there is a lot of original music. I'm floored by the stuff I hear, but I can understand people having that idea. Like, yeah, everything to a degree has been done, has been said. So if a person is doing something creative, they can either speak a language that everybody is very accustomed to or familiar with, but then you have certain artists that will, you know, still be a little bit of a pioneer when it comes to developing a new way of expression, and I think that's still a true something that's happening. And I think it's great. Like some artists have this thing, and I think it's with obviously with movies. Some people have this really bad hang up when they get, say, compared to somebody or something that's popular or that's well known or that is very obvious. Where they wear their kind of, maybe you see a movie or you see a book or you read a book or you hear an album and you're like, oh, wait, this band sounds like I can hear this from that. They were listening to this music at this time. I can really hear that. And there's some groups and artists and just people in the arts in general that really hate that. They don't like that. They want to like they have this funny thing about, and I've had conversations with artists around that where when they're in that space of creating, they will like shut everything off, um, and turn everything off and just kind of focus on their art and try to do something new. They don't want to they don't want to sound like anyone else. And I don't know. Sometimes and I get that, but a lot of the times when I hear people in the arts take that stance, I don't know. Generally, I feel like that music or that art is like not really engaging, not really something that's particularly exciting. Um, and but when I hear groups and bands that do it really well, um, and again, anything in the arts where you can see their influences, and or hear their influences, but then they're doing something kind of unique, and their voice is still loud and clear, and it's I think that's great. Like I mean, again, I'm just small peanuts, and I'm just doing what I do, but the times that's happened with me creatively, with my band Quantum, like when I'm in, it's been really fun because lately I have been writing a lot of music, and it's that's been a lot of fun and a big challenge. It's always very challenging for me to write music, but I've been doing that a lot lately, and it's been really great. And when I'm in that space, creating something or I have an idea and I'm kind of chipping away at it, my personal habits is that it makes me more hungry and more there's more of a thirst of wanting to check out more art, more music, more movies, more books. Like just the more and more I have access to, the more and more I want to check out. Gives me inspiration, but then I will consciously sometimes and then subconsciously take on, you know, little things that I hear or influences from those things, and I love that. For me, it's like that's like it inspires me, and I want to take in more, and I want to check out more, I want to explore more. And for me, it's like occasionally that happens where like you've played we've played a lot of shows and over the years, we've been really fortunate to do that, and every now and then somebody will come up to me and say, oh, that really reminds me of this from this band or this or that, and yet it's different from that. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Like I remember a couple times where people were like came up to me after a show and they were like that really reminded them of like something from David Bowie. And then one time, which was so flattering. I mean, I'll never be a fucking David Bowie because he's a god or was a god. But I'm gonna keep trying. But the fact that someone said to me that they hear that inspiration to me is like it's great. It's wonderful. And I remember that happened with there's been a few other times where that's happened, and I absolutely love that. So I appreciate that. And then in this world of exploitation, um, I think with these movies that are direct ripoffs, with Forbidden World and Contamination being big time ripoffs of Alien, they still they wear it. I mean, it's with Forbidden World, it's kind of next level because it's so fucking obvious. Like it's just like, but even that, even in that kind of extreme case or example of that, it's still the movie still manages to totally have its own voice, and I just think that is so cool. You know, other movie examples that I think of that happens, and to me, it's a clear difference. It's a clear difference. But I think two examples, like two films or three films I can mention. Robert Eggers' The Witch, and then this movie It Follows that came out a few years back, and then also Smile. And Robert Eggers, he's one of my favorite directors, and I just love his movies, but like The Lighthouse and Nosferatu, and the Witch was his first movie, and that's one of those movies that I really liked when I first saw it, and I bought it on Blu-ray, and I've seen it many, many, many times. At a point where I can't remember, I've seen it so many times I couldn't give you a number. And he's one of my favorite directors, modern horror directors. And I remember seeing an interview with him where he was talking about when he was kind of developing as a filmmaker and getting really into film. He started out off in the theater, but he said that one of the things that really, really influenced him was Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And it was a really interesting interview. And he said that what he got so obsessed with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, he was, he first saw it and then he started watching it over and over again. And he was describing where after he had seen it so many times, he would sit there and watch it again for the 40th or 50th time or whatever it was, and sit there with like a sketch pad or a notebook, and he would literally go from scene, shot by shot, and take notes about how he felt like the scenes were being crafted. Like the way the angles would be, the way where the camera would be placed, all of these details. And he said that he made a whole like outline and design on how Kubrick kind of created this film from a technical standpoint. And he said that that was like a real pivotal thing for him to help him kind of visualize how he will like how you could shoot a movie, or how he could shoot a movie. And he said that he applied a lot of that time and a lot of that work to The Witch when he directed that. And at first, when I first saw The Witch, I didn't see I didn't see a Kubrick influence in that movie. It felt really new and real fresh, and one of the best period pieces that I'd ever seen, and a movie that's truly, I think, disturbing and scary. And but I didn't see like a Kubrick influence. And then I'd seen it a couple other times, bought it on Blu-ray, and then I remember coming across this interview with Robert Eggers, and he was talking about that. And then I watched it again, The Witch, and I saw all of that. It was so interesting because the way the shots were all laid out, I was like, wow, like that's how he kind of, he was using this, like his notes from The Shining as like this blueprint on how to map out like a puzzle piece, kind of how that's how Kubrick's brain worked. And I was like, that is super interesting and fascinating. So Kubrick had a massive influence on him for that film, but it's not like overt. And if you kind of into film and you're a little bit nerdy about it, then you kind of discover that. But now when I watch The Witch, I think of Kubrick a lot, and it's really interesting. And it's actually just made the experience of watching that movie more enjoyable. The other thing is, It Follows, and again, this is like a kind of an example of movies that are taking direct influences from movies that are iconic, and and using that as a source of inspiration, or to some degree examples of where the director will just rip it off. And there was a movie that came back quite a few years ago called It Follows, which I think is such an awesome horror movie. I think it's one of the, it's been out for quite a few years, but I think as far as like kind of contemporary horror films, it's one of the best ones. It's such a great movie. It's such an original film. It's generally creepy and scary. And it was a very successful movie. And then a movie came out a few years ago called Smile, which I didn't like that movie at all. And that movie was a huge hit. It spawned a sequel. There was a sequel that came out, and I did not like Smile. I thought that movie was so hyped and so praised by critics and fans. It made a lot of money, and I saw that movie, and I'm like, this movie is just totally fucking ripping off It Follows, and not even a good way. Like, because I felt like that movie didn't do anything. Like, it didn't, as far as the movie standing on its own 2 feet. It didn't have any feet under it, and never really established itself as its own thing. It was just a total knockoff. And with Contamination, granted, it's a totally different thing, but much way more low budget. But with Contamination, today's show, it's clearly an Alien ripoff, but it totally has its own mark. It totally has its own legs. And to me, and I know that's like a subjective thing, but to me it's like it's pretty black and white. And when I see a film or films, it that really jumps out at me. I love it sometimes when I see a movie and I'm like, oh wow, they might have taken that from Blade Runner or I feel like there's like a Hitchcock vibe going on. Like I enjoy that. Um, because that makes me curious on like how they how this thing was kind of put together. But I think it's a very different thing in regards to like ripping something off where you're just ripping off a good idea, and then ripping something off, in a case, and again, that's more of the case in the world of exploitation, because that's the very definition of exploiting something, and you're using it to kind of gain your own thing. But in this case, it's like with Contamination, it's its own thing. It goes into such stranger territory and more bizarre territory. Um, and I just think that is such an interesting kind of thing. And again, I had never seen this movie before. It was directed by Luigi Cozzi, Italian director. Apparently, um, he made a bunch of Italian films in the 70s and 80s. Luigi Cozzi directed films. Again, I don't know if I've ever seen any of these movies. The Tunnel Under the World in '69. Um, Also, 1975, The Killer Must Kill Again. He directed that. That was one he directed. La Porta Nudia, 76. He directed that as well. Take All of Me in '76. Star Crash in '79. Contamination of 1980. Hercules in '83, which I do believe I've seen that one. Monster Shark in '84. Um, The Adventures of Hercules 2, its sequel. Sinbad and the Seven Seas. Oh wow, wow. So he's done some movies I've definitely seen. Oh, okay. Paganini Horror. I own that movie. That's a fucking amazing piece of trash. I love that movie. '89. Donald Pleasance. He directed that. The Black Cat. A.K. Profundus. 1990. He directed that. Um, and he also directed Dario Argento's story, The Museum of Horrors. Wow, cool. Blood on Meles Moon, 2016. So he's still alive and kicking. Man, super cool. Super cool. Ian McCullough is one of the stars of this film. Ian McCullough's great. He's a great actor. He's been in a bunch of Lucio Fulci films, Zombie most notably. He was the one actor I really, really recognized right from the get go. He plays one of the main um, characters. So pretty awesome. Pretty awesome indeed. Also starring Marina Masali, Luisa Marlio, Gail Sahan, Siegfried Rauch, Carlos DeMejo, and Carlo Money. But I can't recommend this movie enough. There is the gore again, like I said, it's an alien ripoff, especially when it comes to the eggs and that kind of sci-fi vibe. But this movie is goes into much different territory. It's super wacky. The gore and practical effects in this movie are astounding, astounding. I was blown away by it. I mean, and it's definitely like body horror. I mean, you literally have scenes of bodies blowing up, like fully blowing up, and like intestines coming out of the chest and heads blowing up, and it's bonkers. I would totally, totally buy this on Blu-ray. Definitely down the road, I will look for this on Blu-ray. But this movie just rocks. 1980, Contamination. The Italians do it the best. Thanks again, and have a great day and stay warm. Peace.